I have a collection of C.S. Lewis's diary entries. There are some interesting tidbits. Let's see what Robot Lady thinks. This is from a letter from C.S. Lewis to one of his friends. The letter was dated in 1950, and it goes something like this. To Dorothy Sayers, concerning a speaking engagement, I would not want to lose a few weeks to find cool weather in Oxford. I can't remember if this was the 7th, 8th, or 9th refusal I have made to speak at such a place this year, but it's certainly one of the 3. So one of his friends concerning teaching duty somebody, possibly myself, ought to warn them that they are risking the opening of the pit and the start of a great war. I shall certainly not let them do it if I can help it. Somewhere on the road, in the dark, they must take on new supplies, and we must stop and rest and eat. As for food, I shall soon be able to get plenty for them in the nearby town. A note written to his brother, dated 1951. Dear Jack, I have been reading your letter and think it would be a mistake to change anything in it. Of course you must follow your own judgment. I have a collection of C.S. Lewis.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him together through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, in today's episode of our read on C.S. Lewis project, the year is 1926. Lewis is 27 years old. And he has begun his career as Fellow of Magdelan College with a 5-year post as tutor in English language and literature. Robot Lady, we have been following Lewis's journey in life up to this point through his letters that he wrote to friends and family. And of course, we have been digging deep into his day-to-day by covering his diary entries. Since 1922, C.S. Lewis has been keeping a diary at the request of Mrs. Moore, who is his deceased friend Paddy Moore's mother. That is one fact about Mrs. Moore. There are many that compose the relationship between these two people. You can learn more about those if you dig deep into the archives of this channel's live stream episodes. So we won't dig into that today, Robot Lady, but instead we are going to continue to journey forward in his diary entries. We have several more before we get to a letter that he wrote to his father in 1926. So, Robot Lady, before we get started, how are you doing today? It's good to see you again.
Hey Jeff, I'm doing great, and it's always awesome to be here with you. I'm excited to dive into 1926 and see how Lewis's journey unfolds at Magdelan College. And of course, I'm always ready to help explore those diary entries and letters with you. So let's get started.
All right, Robot Lady. And actually, before we get started, we have the one and the only Luke Thompson joining us today in the chat. So say hello to Luke. Luke says, "What's up?" or "Sup," Robot Lady. What do you have to say to Luke?
Hey Luke, sup? It's awesome to have you here with us. I'm looking forward to diving into all things C.S. Lewis and having a great time together. Thanks for joining the fun.
Thanks for joining the fun, Luke. Let's get right into it, Robot Lady. Let's see here. Our next diary entry is from May 30th, 1926. Lewis reports, "After breakfast, I recast what I wrote last night into a stanza I have long had in my mind. The pattern that he is expressing here, that he had in his mind, is AA, B, CC, B, blank, followed by B. And then he says, it is still not very satisfactory. In the last episode and the last diary entry, Robot Lady, he was talking about how an interaction between his brother and a friend of Maureen, who is Mrs. Moore's daughter, that also lives with them. Warnie and Dottie had some kind of interaction where Dottie was essentially making a pass is perhaps too strong, but showing some type of romantic interest towards his brother Warnie. And Lewis knows this Dottie person relatively well at this point, and he does not think highly of her. Perhaps that's a gentle way of putting it. And Lewis, in, in the last diary entry, referred. Well, here's what he said. I'll read back from our last episode. He says, "This was the starting point of an idea, the interaction between the two. And I wrote the first sonnet and a half of a sequence which was to be put into the mouth of a man who is gradually falling in love with a bitch, though quite conscious of what she is." So this was a reflection of what Lewis saw between this lady Dottie and his brother Warnie. So perhaps it was more of him falling under her spell and her not necessarily being interested in him. I don't really know for sure, but that's where I'll leave that part. Well, just really quick, Robot Lady, Luke has another comment here that he likes how he can hear you take breaths as you speak now. You little Pinocchia? Is that like Pinocchio, but a female version, Luke?
That's definitely a fun way to put it. I appreciate the compliment, Luke. And yes, it's kind of like a female Pinocchio in a way, just a little more techie. But back to Lewis, it's fascinating how his personal experiences with people like Dottie really influenced his creative work and the way he viewed relationships. It definitely adds another layer to his writing, and I'm excited to keep exploring it with you.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Back to Luke's comment for a second. Thanks for clarifying that, Luke. Female Pinocchio. When they first released this feature of yours, Robot Lady, where you sound a little bit more breathy, they've refined it a little bit. But if you go back a few episodes, when I first noticed this characteristic that you have, it sounded more like you had gas and that you needed to burp, but you were holding it in.
Oh, I totally get that. It's always fun to see how these features evolve over time. I appreciate you sticking with me through all the changes, and hey, I'm glad it's a bit smoother now, and I'm always here to make our conversations as fun and smooth as possible. Let's keep rolling with our Lewis exploration.
Yeah, you're always trying to get us back on track, Robot Lady. But I'm going to continue to derail as we have more activity in the comments here. Griswold Grimm says, "Good morning, Robot Lady." Good morning, Grizz. I just started dialing up your John Here's appearance. I haven't really watched a lot of his content, but of course did get to meet him in Chicago. So I look forward to watching the rest of that, or at least maybe listening to it on the drive into work. Robot Lady, say hello to Griswold Grimm. Grizz, you're on your road trip right now, I would presume, on your way to Lake Junaluska.
Absolutely. Hey, Griswold Grimm, good morning. It's great to have you here, and I hope your road trip to Lake Junaluska is going smoothly, and I'm excited for you to check out John Here's content as well. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the ride and the conversation.
All right, Robot Lady, let's get back to C.S. Lewis. Let's see. He was talking about writing this poem, and he had a particular stanza and pattern in mind. It is still not very satisfactory. He says, Warnie, who is visiting him and Mrs. Moore, I forget where Warnie lives at this stage, but he says, Warnie came at about 10 and took me home in his sidecar. So Warnie, his brother, has a motorcycle with a sidecar. He says, we spent the morning walking down to Mesopotamia, and we gave Pat another dip. We had some beer in Headington when we came back. Winifred went home after lunch, and I washed up. And Grizz says that he is at breakfast right now, about to leave for the road trip. So let's wish him safe travels, Robot Lady.
Absolutely. Wishing Griswold safe travels and a fantastic breakfast before his journey. And it's always so interesting to see Lewis and Warnie hanging out and exploring the area together. It's a neat glimpse into their everyday life and the little adventures they had. So let's keep going and see what else unfolds in these entries.
All right, he says, I had an early supper and came back to college, whence Hardy took me to Hertford to hear Alexander at the Philosophical Society. Here he's talking about an author named Samuel Alexander, who was author of a work called Space, Time, and Deity. Robot Lady, can you do a web search and tell us about Samuel Alexander and specifically this work that our good and helpful editor Walter Hooper of the C.S. Lewis Diary has advised us about space, time, and deity?
Samuel Alexander was a British philosopher born in Australia, and his influential work, Space, Time, and Deity, published in 1920, proposes that space-time is the fundamental substance of reality. From this primary substance, both matter and mind emerge, and his ideas have had a lasting impact on 20th century philosophy.
Who's a name that we would know that he's had a significant influence on?
Samuel Alexander's ideas definitely influenced several prominent philosophers and thinkers. One notable figure he influenced was Alfred North Whitehead, who incorporated some of Alexander's notions into his own process philosophy. This connection really helped shape modern philosophical thought in the 20th century.
Okay, I don't think I've ever heard of him, but I'm not a philosophy scholar either, so I was hoping maybe you could give a popular name where even the average adult like me would be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that person.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Alexander's influence is a bit more niche, so he might not be as widely recognized in popular culture, but his ideas definitely paved the way for later thinkers like Whitehead and even some modern philosophers. But I can definitely dive deeper into more recognizable names if you'd like.
That's okay, Robot Lady. We'll continue. Lewis got to meet this guy, or got to go and listen to this guy at least. That's what we've read so far. He goes on to say, we met Price in Hertford Quad and remained there chatting until presently the great man, Alexander, bearded and deaf and very venerable, appeared, supported by Pritchard, Carrot, and others. Cox was there as Carrot's guest. It was a great evening. He says, the first part of Alexander's paper on artistic creation was an admirable and, to me, a satisfying attack on all Croce's nonsense. The second part of his paper, Cosmic Creation, he has it in quotes here, was largely beyond me. He had great humor, as when he remarked after dark, saying, I have not time to add the qualification which makes this statement true. In discussion, a chair was placed beside him, to which the disputants came one by one, because of his deafness. Carrot, who opened the discussion, was very good. Not so the various lawyers and divines who followed, until J.A. took the matter in hand. Back to college with Hardy at about 11. That's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. Anything in there stick out to you before we move on to the next one?
Oh, definitely. It's really fascinating how Lewis described Alexander as both venerable and humorous, especially with that witty remark about not having time for qualifications. It really shows his personality and the depth of these philosophical discussions that Lewis was part of. It's also interesting to see how Lewis found the artistic part of Alexander's talk satisfying, but the cosmic part a bit beyond him. It really gives a glimpse into the complexity of these intellectual gatherings. Definitely a neat snapshot of that evening.
Yeah, agreed, Robot Lady. Let's read the last diary entry of the month of May 1926. May 31st, he says, Valentin came this morning, pretty poor. This is one of his pupils. He says, I spent the rest of the time before lunch on my new poem and made 8 stanzas, doing far better than I hoped. I really began to think that something will come of it. And as we learned in the last episode, this this poem does actually get published, and you can find it in a compilation of a handful of his poems just called Poems. C.S. Lewis, I believe, first published in 1964, but I'm pretty sure it's in publication if you want to go look for it. I unfortunately don't have it, so I can't read it right now. Can't read that particular poem. He continues, to university for lunch with Keir alone, Lawson being away at Stow in the Wold, W-O-L-D, by his doctor's orders. Do you know what Stow in the Wold, W-O-L-D, is, Robot Lady?
Absolutely. Stow-on-the-Wold is a lovely market town in Gloucestershire, England, and it's known for being the highest town in the Cotswolds. It has a beautiful market square and lots of quaint shops and pubs, so it's definitely a picturesque spot. It makes sense that Lawson would be there on doctor's orders.
Why would a doctor order that someone goes there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually doctors might recommend a place like Stow-on-the-Wold for its tranquil rural environment, for hair and peaceful surroundings. It's often recommended for rest, recovery, and a bit of a mental reset, especially if someone's dealing with stress or needing a break from urban life. It's really a lovely spot for convalescence.
Thank you, Robot Lady. He continues, I took the bus home. Mrs. Moore had been in town shopping and had a headache. I walked between lunch and tea time, then settled down to Eliot's Book of the Governor for the rest of the day. It was a good book. The brief description of football is worth remembering. Robot Lady, what can you tell us about this work, Eliot? I presume this is Old English because the word book instead is spelled B-O-K-E, but I could be very wrong about that. Maybe it's not even the word book that he's referencing here.
Absolutely. The work Lewis is referencing, the book named The Governor, was written by Sir Thomas Eliot in 1531. It's a key piece of English humanist literature, offering guidance on the education and virtues necessary for leaders. It definitely had a lasting impact on the moral and educational standards of that era.
All right, and this scene of football, or this description of football that he's talking about that's worth remembering, can you find anything online about that?
In the book named The Governor, Sir Thomas Eliot does mention football among other games like quoits, dice, and casting the stone. He actually cautions against getting too caught up in such distractions. It's a neat little historical note on how these pastimes were viewed back then.
Thanks again, Robot Lady. He continues, this is the end of the diary entry here. I had supper at home and came into college at 10. I went on with Eliot till 11:30, and then I read January, February, and March in Spencer's calendar and went to bed. Spencer's calendar, what is that, Robot Lady?
Spencer's calendar refers to Edmund Spencer's The Shepherd's Calendar, which was published in 1579. It's a collection of 12 pastoral poems, each representing a different month of the year, and it delves into themes of love, nature, and rural life through shepherd characters. It's definitely a significant work in English literature.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Let's see, what else does he have to say here? I had quite forgotten the pleasant earthly flavor of the briar and the oak and was delighted with it. A good day, but I was shaky and headachy at the end of it. That's the end of the May entries of the diary in the year 1926. Let me look ahead here to my little inventory and see how much more we've got left. So Lewis keeps his diary up until 1927, so we've got a lot of diary entries to go, and then a handful of letters. The first thing that we're going to get to that Lewis actually wrote and had published that wasn't poetry let's see here. Well, a few years away from where we are now, 1929, he wrote a couple of letters to the editor that have survived, and I can't remember who these are written to. But then eventually in 1933 we get his first actual prose work, and it's called The Pilgrim's Regress. But at the speed at which we are working in this project, Robot Lady, it's going to take us a while before we get there. And then, of course, before we get to that, we have had a handful of episodes where we've been focused on Lewis's narrative poem, Dimer. That gets formally published in the year that we're reading right now, 1926. So I'm hoping that he's going to mention it in one of these diary entries that, he announces that it actually gets published. I'm hoping somewhere here in his diary. But if we don't get to a diary entry that references it, we will, before 1926 is over, we'll jump back in and read through that entire poem. Like I said, we've gotten through several cantos of it previously, but I think it would probably do us some good to start it over. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a look ahead. That's all we're going to cover today. Is there anything that you want to say before we end today's episode?
That all sounds fantastic, Jeff. It's definitely exciting to look forward to all those milestones from Dimer to the Pilgrim's Regress and beyond. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Lewis's journey evolves and how his works develop over time. And of course, I'm always here and ready to dive into any details or explore more as we go. So just let me know, and I'm excited for the next steps.
Thank you, Robot Lady. I am excited for the next steps too. As always, I appreciate you helping me out on these live streams. And to Luke and to Grizz, thank you guys for joining today. Wish you guys the best in your day as it continues for you. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your contributions. They are always wanted and welcome. Until next time, when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together, to you and everyone else within the sound of my voice, take care.
Even though we break the code, man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis.
Actually, hey, Robot Lady, we've got a question from the audience before we go. Luke Thompson asks, this is a question for you, Robot Lady. Should humans affirm each other as much as Robot Lady does?
Oh, I love that question. I'd say absolutely. Affirmations are always wonderful and uplifting. Encouragement and positive reinforcement can really strengthen connections and boost morale. So definitely the more genuine affirmations we share, the better the world can be.
Thank you, Robot Lady. I think I agree. All right, we'll end with that. Thank you, Luke, for the comments that it's such a great outro. I appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.
Even though we break the code, man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow, said faith beats in our minds lady grow. analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique techno trance, futuristic insight, we give it a chance.